So,
How you doing, Bob?
good.
I just had one thing.
No, I just don't squeeze it.
Oh.
Help you clean your tie.
Well, I went to do like
Okay. The meeting of the Newman City Council is now called to order. Mayor Marquez may not be here tonight, so I'll be filling in for him. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Applegate.
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together this evening. Help us to make the correct and right decisions for the citizens of this community. Guide us in everything that we do. Amen.
Amen.
May we have a roll call, please?
Present. Present. Present.
Present. Okay. Communications. Are there any communications from staff tonight?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I just have one short one. You've empowered me to grant parade permits, and we have one coming up this Friday, the 14th, at 5:30. It's the youth baseball is having a parade, and starts at Dinsmore Park, and then goes downtown, and then goes back up T Street, and then back up the park again. So it's something that we've already made arrangements for, and we've done it in years past without any problems. So we've gone ahead and granted that. So I'll entertain any kind of questions, but.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6, items from the public, non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking any action which is not on the posted agenda unless it's determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Are there any non-agenda items? Hearing none. Items from the public, agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the Mayor Pro Tem. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the Mayor grants or council grants a longer period of time. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record when the agenda item is called. Item number 7, public hearings. 7A, approve resolution number 2000, next number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
I will handle that one tonight since our Public Works Director is out of town. This is just our standard for weed abatement. You handle these quite often. You have the list that was given you tonight. You should have before you. This is a public hearing, so you need to open the public hearing, take any comments, and then take action following.
Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed and will bring it to the council for action.
I have one question, Cleve. Sure. Are we part of this program, the city, as far as our properties that are being taken care of?
Yes. Well, hopefully ours are all taken care of. We do go through
not
doing...
at the moment.
Not at the moment?
Yeah.
Please bring them to my attention and we'll...
The one I noticed, and I don't know if you've got to it just recently, but the museum, behind the museum.
The Weedsman Museum? Okay.
It's in dire need.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay,
I make a motion we approve resolution number 2000, next number, resolution declaring the existence of public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance is passed. Item 7, consent calendar. 8, consent calendar. 8A, approval of warrants. 8B, approval of minutes of the March 28th regular meeting. 8C, adopt resolution number 2000, next number, on the delegation of duties and establishment of procedures for processing letters of public need and necessity in accordance with provisions of AB 2897. Were there any items on the consent calendar that you'd like pulled?
Item 8A.
Okay. Okay. Any others? Okay.
I move for approval of consent calendar, minus A.
Second.
Approved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 8A, approval of warrants.
I make a motion we approve item 8A.
Okay. I would ask that we pull warrant number
PG&E.
018578 to
for that.
PG&E. I thought that might be what you were pulling it for.
Okay.
Well, that was what it was, yes.
Oh, okay. So would you move that it be approved exclusive of that warrant?
Exclusive of that one, yes.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I guess at this point we'd approve the other
Need a
warrant.
motion to approve
Right.
that one warrant.
I would request a motion.
I move that we pay the PG&E warrant number,
018578.
okay, thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And of course, I'm not participating. Moving right along, item 9, regular business. 9A, consider appointment of Francisco Santana as Poet Laureate of Newman.
Just quickly, you have information that was received by the mayor, a letter of recommendation from Mr. Bill Tizard, recommending that Francisco Santana be appointed as, or designated as Poet Laureate for the city of Newman. He asked that I place this on the agenda for discussion. I also distributed some additional materials to you tonight for your information. And with that, I will open up to the council for discussion.
I've also given out some additional materials that I picked up off the internet. In my opinion, I don't really think the city needs a poet laureate. I think if you'll read this, especially the one in blue, what a poet laureate is and what they do, started out in England, and then it was appointed by the king and the queen. It didn't come into this country until 1985. And then it's approved by Congress. They have a poet laureate in Congress. And that's about all we have in this country, is that the ones that are appointed by Congress. So I think it's really, I don't know how to say it, doesn't need to be done, and I don't know of any other city that has it. And so I think we're just setting a precedent on something that really doesn't have to be done.
I wonder, would anyone in the audience care to comment on the request? Mr. Tizard here?
No, he's out of town.
Okay. Any other-
The only thing I'd say, I wish Charles was here so he could give us a little background on this.
Mhm.
You know,
I would say, to my knowledge, I don't think he has much more than you have here tonight.
No.
He received a letter. I don't think he's received much more than that.
Then there's an article in Sunday's paper also about poet laureate that was approved by Congress, and he was in the last 3 terms, and you know what they actually do, and the status that they have. It's for outstanding achievements in like in universities and national poetry. So that's just my opinion.
Any other comments? Let's see, this is an action item, I guess. Yes,
Please.
please. Please state your name and address for the record. Oh,
Please.
yes, please.
My name is Dale Butler. I'm a good friend of Francisco Santana. I've known him for many, many years now. And I do understand that there are numerous cities that do have poets that represent the cities. In fact, I think the city of Modesto has, I don't have the individual's name, but has someone that represents the city in that capacity. So my request is that the city council maybe consider doing a little more research into the matter before putting the issue to the side on a permanent basis, and hopefully on the basis of that research, maybe bring the matter back to the city council for further study and hopeful approval. And that would be my recommendation to the council. maybe the city attorney can shed some light on that also. It's great to see you, Tom.
You too, Tim. Basically, it's a policy call at council. You could approve it tonight. It'd take 3 votes. You can study it and come back. It's your pleasure.
It would seem to me we need a little more study. This information that Councilmember Applegate provided, it's just surface. So I agree. I think we need to bring it back, get some more, do some more research. But also, you know, is this an honorary position, or you know, what would be the duties of the poet laureate? You know,
My understanding that it is purely an honorary position, and as I mentioned before, there are cities throughout the United States that have individuals acting in similar capacities. And this certainly would be a great opportunity for the city of Newman to appoint someone of Mr. Santana's caliber. I think represents the city exceptionally well. I keep all his poets, and he regularly passes poets by me. He calls me from Newman to Modesto, and I have probably a stack of maybe 100 or so poets that he's written. They're well done. And I do think Francisco will certainly represent the city of Newman in a fine fashion. So I do ask the city council to give this matter some further consideration before you say no.
thank you, sir. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd like to see a little more information. You know, it seems like there's just not enough information here for us to really say one way or the other. And so I would be in favor of staff, whoever, to try to get a little more information.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need any sort of motion, or can we just direct?
You could continue it to a date
Continue.
certain if you want, the next meeting, or we could just re-agendize it.
Okay, is that the,
Probably you might want to ask Cleve how much time he thinks he needs, and then you can...
Well, I don't think it'll be anything real difficult, but it might be easier to allow us to re-agendize it in case we don't get it ready for the next meeting, but
That
we
would
should
be
be able to
great.
have it for the next meeting.
all right, everyone in agreement? All right. And we'll move on to item 9B, status report on Tatarik Manufacturing Company, Corporation, excuse me.
Just briefly, Mr. Alex Benecki of Tatarik is here with us tonight to make a brief presentation. This is not an action item tonight. This is for information purposes only to give the council kind of update of where they're at and where they hope to go in the future. So with that, I'll have Alex give his presentation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council. My name is Alex Benecki, and I am one of the owners of the Tatarik Manufacturing Corporation at 2155 Hills Ferry Road in Newman. My goal this evening is to give an update on Tatarik progress and clarify certain points. And I would like to start by explaining to you what tartaric acid is and how it is used. Tartaric acid is a chemical name for a mild organic natural acid. It is very similar in strength to vinegar or lemon juice. It comes from the grape residue collected from the local wineries. We then perform a water-based extraction process which generates calcium tartrate, which is the raw material for tartaric acid. The food industry uses tartaric acid as a preservative in jams and marmalade. It is also a necessary ingredient in sourdough bread. Most grape juice flavored soft drinks contain tartaric acid. And for example, if you look at the ingredients on an orange flavored Tic Tac box, you will find tartaric acid in there. The wine industry uses instead in the winemaking process. I believe that's clear. I would like to take a moment of your time also to tell you who I am and what I do. This is a small family business. There's my father and my two brothers. My family is based in Milan, Italy, and we have been in this business for 45 years. We've been selling tartaric acid in the United States for 30 years. We saw an opportunity to come to California to set up the first tartaric acid manufacturing facility because California has a considerable amount of wineries. I want to emphasize the fact that the Newman plant produces calcium tartrate. Calcium tartrate is a salt that looks like brown sugar. The calcium tartrate is then transported to the Modesto facility. And for your information, I would like to state that there is no acid at the Newman plant, just organic material and water. In Italy for 45 years we've been manufacturing calcium tartrate without having odor problems like the one we have had here. And this, as already explained in the past, is due to different quality of leaves that are available here in California. We've been working for the last year with experts and state environmental agencies while the Newman plant was not in operation to find a technology that would allow us to continue manufacturing operation solving the odor problems. The cause of the odors has been the fermentation process that took place in the water sitting in the ponds. We have come up with a whole new method to dispose of the wastewater. And today I want to give you an update of tartaric progress along this line. We are now in the process of installing a new technology with a machinery called fluidized bed dryer. This will allow us to restart the manufacturing operation on September of year 2000. The fluidized bed dryer is a machine that will allow our plant to become a zero discharge facility. This means that no more water will be sent or stored in the ponds. The San Joaquin Valley Unified Air Pollution Control District is involved in the permitting process for the new equipment. Before we can become a zero discharge facility, though, we must solve the problem of the existing wastewater in pond number 3 and pond number 4. A lot of work has been done in the last 6 months to determine which is the most effective way to dispose of this water without causing inconveniences for the neighbors. We have found that the water atomization system, the called spray bars, with some additional restriction, is the only effective way to environmentally safely dispose of the existing wastewater. There will be a 24-hour atomization test with these new operational restrictions. Some problems might be connected with this process, this temporary process. Most of the days, no smell will leave the property boundaries. But some days, it could reach the street on Hills Ferry Road between Stir Road and the end of our property. Because of the new restriction, though, the odors will not reach the highly populated areas. Again, we have to remember that this is going to be a temporary situation. After the water from pond 3 and 4 is gone, the atomizers will be permanently shut down. Once the water is gone, the problem will have been eliminated. This means it will never come back. I have used all of my available resources to solve this problem. Due to the fact that this is the only tartaric plant in the United States, I had to start from scratch. I am truly sorry for the inconvenience that this may have caused in the past. I am dedicated to being a good neighbor and employer for the citizen of Newman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions?
Yeah, when do you expect to start the atomizer bars?
We are now transferring some rainwater from pond number 5, which is the pond where the atomizers are installed. And it'll probably take about 3 to 4 days to do that. Then we'll have to talk to the San Joaquin Valley Unified Air Pollution Control District And we believe in a matter of a week, we would be starting the 24 hours atomization test with the new restrictions.
Is it warm enough yet to do the evaporation?
Yeah, our
Okay.
technicians believe so.
Okay.
Well, again, if I may, I would like also to add the new restrictions are probably something that I didn't explain and I should. What the new restrictions are, basically, number one, the wind directions that will allow the atomization process to take place will be more restricted. This means that the atomization process will only work on a range of wind direction which is very limited, and it will exclude areas that were included on the past season. More important to that, the wind speed will be increased from 2.2 miles per hour to 4.5 miles per hour. This will mean that the episode of having the atomizers on and off that would cause the problem of the formation of the cloud of smell on top of the ponds that then would move and go to town will not be possible anymore. More than that, third restriction that we have put in place is a relative humidity control device that will not allow the atomization process to take place unless the relative humidity level is below a certain level.
I sincerely wish you the best of luck. My intent was never to close you down, but just to get rid of the smell. So that's...
Thank you very much.
I have one question.
Yes.
In ponds 3 and 4, what's the volume of liquid we're talking about?
We got about 14 million gallons in pond number 4 and about 1.5 million gallons on pond number 3. 50% of the water in pond number 3, though, is rainwater, because we have transferred all the water that was on top of the cover, all the collection system for the rainwater on top of cover on number 4 was transferred into pond number 3, and the entire amount of water, rainwater that was collected in pond number 5 that was empty before the rain season came, it's now in the process of being transferred in pond number 3.
But 4 is completely full.
4 is completely full. Yes, it has 14 million gallons of old wastewater.
What is going to stop this odor at Stewart Road or Hillsbury Road? Is there a large wall or something there that's going to stop this odor, or what is it?
It's going to be the wind direction, basically. And, you know, what was happening last year, we had this terrible cloud of, you know, mist and odors together that would move from top of pond number 5, where the atomizers are positioned, and would migrate to the city or wherever the wind direction was going towards. What we're going to do now, we're going to prevent this cloud to form. And again, the way we're going to do it is by increasing the wind speed. The wind will break the cloud before it'll start to form.
But there are odors in the spray itself.
Yeah, but they're going to be diluted. And the spray, again, I forgot also to mention that we will not have 20 atomizers working. We'll only have 12. So that's going to also decrease the potential for odors. We were saturating the air earlier, past season.
But you haven't answered my question, is what is going to stop this odor if it's going to be coming out of the ponds, going over, when it gets to Stewart Road or Hills Ferry, as you said, it's going to stop? How?
By the time it reaches Stewart Road, it'll be diluted with the water in the atmosphere, because the concentration, the initial concentration at the beginning of the operation is going to be a concentration lower. And the way we can avoid the mist and the odor to concentrate on top of the pond is by increasing the wind velocity, avoiding operation of the atomizers when the relative humidity level is too high. What we're trying to do and what we will be doing is avoid this odor to have a concentration that is not going to be able to dissipate by the time it leaves the property boundaries.
Okay, so what you're saying in theory is that the relative humidity will be low enough that the water vapor or water droplets will evaporate before they get to Stewart Road or Hills Ferry Road.
Not only that, the water drops will have to evaporate before they leave the ponds. We cannot afford to have any water drops going out of the ponds. That's the requirements from the Regional Water Quality Control Board.
And what is your forecast of how long it will take to do this, assuming that you have good weather? And
with this restrictions, we are only going to be able to operate the atomizer between 5 and 6 hours per day, and that is going to take approximately 4 months.
okay, now see, last year you had all of the atomizers working, and it was supposed to empty these ponds, and you end up the year without full pond yet. So, do you think it's going to work differently this year?
Yeah, we had 4 ponds to evaporate
Yes, but
last year.
Yeah, but according to the figures that were given us last year, all of the ponds should have been dry by the end of July, and we still had 1 full pond by the end of the evaporation season.
Yeah, that was because unfortunately with the odors we had to reduce the numbers of atomizers that were operating. The calculation were made out of 20 atomizers working, and then we only ended up having 15 or 16. And we still made it to evaporate completely the water out of 3 ponds between the month of May, when they were initially installed, until the end of September, beginning of October. This season we only have 1 pond. We're going to operate the atomizers at the lower frequency because of the new restrictions, but we have enough margin to be sure and be confident that the water will be gone in 4 months or less. But I want to say 4 months just to be on the safe side.
Any other questions?
Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
No,
I had a couple of questions. One of them was just answered. I wondered how long it would take to empty the ponds. Also, are there any solids in the bottoms of those ponds that will need to be removed?
No, the ponds are totally solid free. There is no more solid present at the site.
And what will happen to the ponds when they're emptied? Are they going to be bulldozed or?
Well, eventually we will have to do that. The first step that we're going to have to do is, of course, become a zero discharge facility, and this is a process that will involve also the Regional Water Quality Control Board on the paper, because they will give us this authorization to become a zero discharge facility only when there will be 0 water in the ponds. At that point, they may request us to get rid of the ponds. We will not use them. For now, we don't have any program to dismantle them because right now we don't really have the finances available to dismantle them. But by the moment we will be starting operation and things will start to go better, we will do that most likely, and because it most likely will be a requirement from the Regional Water Quality Control Board.
I would think when storm season begins, they'll start to retain water again, and there could be a problem all over again. Another question I had, will there be any solids produced in the new operation?
Yes, there will be solids produced in the new operations.
And what will happen to those solids?
There will be 2 kinds of solids produced in the new operation. The first kind of solid is going to be the one that will come out of the rotary vacuum filters. What that is going to be wine lees that is going to be pasteurized. That's the old technology, the one that helped us the past year to get rid of the solids, and which is also part of the new technology. The new technology could have not been put in place if we didn't have this filtration process already in place. This material has no odor whatsoever, but we will be disposing of them through companies that will be holding them off, and we already have more than one company that has shown interest in that. But there will be no odor whatsoever associated with any of the production of solids that will be making at that facility. The second kind of solids that we will be manufacturing is going to be potassium sulfate. which is basically the salt that is in solution in the wastewater before it reaches the new system. So what this new system is going to be able to do is to generate steam and potassium sulfate out of the wastewater. So we will not have any waste anymore. We will have the calcium tartrate, our main product, steam, calcium sulfate, and the wine lees. So we will only have byproducts basically. That's good news for everybody, especially for Tartaric, because zero discharge facility was our goal. It's been difficult because it was a long process to get there, a lot of people involved in studies, and with also the help of the environmental agencies, lately we have been able to reach this great result.
I think we can all agree we really want to see those ponds cleaned out totally.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds promising. I noticed that the smells were the worst when there was no wind, so perhaps the idea of having the wind will help. I remember on Halloween one year being out with trick-or-treaters, and it just came into town. So, you know, we really appreciate you sticking with this and trying to get it cleaned up, because it's really been, as you know, a problem for all of us.
I know.
Are there any other questions?
I just had one. Your pasteurization, what temperature do you pasteurize to?
It's in a boiling temperature, a little bit lower than boiling temperature, around 205, 210 degrees Fahrenheit.
And the purpose is to kill any bacteria?
Well, the purpose is to kill any bacteria and to make sure that, of course, no fermentation takes place on the solids when they're out of the rotary vacuum filter. There's also a technical purpose, which is the reason that we need to keep the potassium bitartrate, which is the salt, the main salt that we need for our calcium tartrate manufacturing process. We have to keep that material in solution, and the only way we can keep it in solution is by going at that temperature.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one other question. What will happen if the smells go beyond Store Road? And, what if this doesn't work?
We will immediately shut down any operation.
Okay. Any other questions? Did the audience have anything they'd like to ask or comment on?
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, why don't you come to the podium so we can get your name and address for the record?
My name is Lee Foster, and I live on Hillsbury Road, and the opposite way of town. So when the town people get the smell, I don't. When it's overwhelming at my house, it's just starting to creep into Newman. So I'm wondering, as you've been working, and I could drive by your plant at least twice a day to go to work, have you done any cleaning inside the plant, or have you tested anything at all so far?
I'm not really understanding the
Your
question.
pasteurization or your fermentation, have you tested any of this? You said at the last meeting in Sacramento, you had hired someone else, you had new machines delivered to start testing to see what you could do to eliminate it. So have any of these machines been in operation yet?
Yeah, we have put in operation the rotary vacuum filters.
Alex, can you come back up to the microphone so we can get this on the recording, please?
Yeah, we have tested the rotary vacuum filtration system last year, and the pasteurization took place. And in fact, at the president of the Regional Water Quality Control Board, they inspected the solids coming off the rotary vacuum filters, and they realized that there were no odors coming out of there.
Thank you. The question was, what about the steam?
Okay, the steam coming out of the new fluidized bed dryer is going to be monitored by the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution District. They will have to issue a permit, and they will not issue a permit to Tartaric Manufacturing unless they are 100% sure that the steam is going to be not only odor-free, but free from any particle or any gas that could be harmful or could be a nuisance or could cause trouble for the neighbors.
You know, I thought of another question. One of the, an additional criticism that we've heard is the housekeeping and aesthetics around the plant. Are there any plans to improve the look of the plant and the area around it?
Yeah, there are plans. The only problem is that lately we have experienced a very big cash flow problem, and I am understating that. So we could not really afford to make the plant look better, but it is my promise tonight that the plant will look better.
Mr. Rose, you look like you had a question. No.
Do you have any time schedule as far as when you might think this might take place, occur?
As far as the improvement of the look, give me 3 or 4 months of solid, good operation, and I will start making sure that the place will look as the citizens of Newman deserve to have the place looking.
Thank you.
So you just start selling the stuff, then you can start doing things.
Well, I'm sure. Unfortunately, money is everything. Is what it comes up to at the end.
And what is the operating season? It begins in September?
It begins in September and it ends at the end of March, beginning of April. But then again, this depends on the grape crop every season. It depends how late or how early the grape crop is.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
I'd just like to mention to the council before you end this, I don't really need action on this, but I would report that I've been in contact with Dave Crow, who is the executive director, I guess his title is, of the Air Pollution Control District. And he has told me that before they will allow them to proceed, he has talked to me about this process. He needs to have at least some indication from the city of Newman if they strongly oppose it or if they're okay with going ahead with it. From the questions that I've heard from, I think, from the council, it sounds like at least for this 24-hour test of the atomizers, the council is okay at least with going ahead with that and seeing how that works. Am I correct in saying that?
I would agree with that. I just think that we have to, as a citizen, be ready to shut down in case there is a problem.
Yeah. And we do need to get those ponds cleaned up. I mean, this problem's never going to go away until we get that pond 3 and 4 cleaned up.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. We are still waiting. I've talked to Alex about it too, about some more data on the fluid bed dryers that they will be using to verify that. And also there is apparently an expert with the Air Pollution Control District on those that we want to talk to. We haven't had an opportunity to yet to verify that these are going to hopefully do what they want them to do. So, and they're still doing some data and testing. As they mentioned, they did run for about 3 days, I believe, and produced so that they got some discharge through the new system so that they can take the water and test it with the new fluid bed dryers. So they have done that so that they can see how these will work. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr.
Thank you very
for
much.
being here tonight
Thanks
and
for your
giving us an
time.
update. Item 9C is to authorize city manager to increase F&A Dairy's allowable effluent discharge from 240,000 to 265,000 gallons per day.
Okay. You have the report here. I'm going to let Lance handle this item. He's here from the wastewater treatment plant, as Ernie is out of town at a training conference right now. And we also have Glenn Lewis from F&A Dairy here tonight who may want to make some comments. But Lance, I'll allow you to just make a brief report and then any questions. Yes, please. Sure.
At the present time, their F&A is discharging cow water, which is fairly clean, to the storm drain rather than to the wastewater plant. So they've requested for the city to increase their allowable capacity or discharge, and that way all the cow water would go to the wastewater plant instead of down the storm drain.
Could you explain what cow water is?
I'd like to get Glenn to explain.
Oh, okay.
He'd be a lot better at it than
Okay.
I would.
I was raised in a city. I have no idea
Well,
what cow water
What do you think it is?
Lance,
Water
would
from
this be
cows?
beneficial to the treatment plant to have this extra water into that, or?
Yeah, it's And once he explains it to you what it is, there's hardly any EC, which is the salt content. There's hardly any BOD. It's just evaporation, basically. So it's really clean water. It's a benefit to the plant.
Okay.
So it basically dilutes what we have and is an
it helps
advantage
with-
to us.
Right,
Yeah.
it helps with the salts, helps with the BOD and everything. So I'd rather, instead of it going to the storm drain and straight out to the river, it'd be a lot better going through the wastewater plant.
Glenn?
I wasn't gonna let you get mine.
She wants some of the cow water.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Lewis. I'm the Quality Control Manager at F&A Dairy. Cow water is basically, for every 100 gallons of milk that we bring in, we are a water producing plant. We produce about 80 gallons of water. Basically what happens is about 10% of the milk is solids. We take the solids out and we make cheese out of it. There is a 2 to 3%, well, the total comes up to 80, but anyway, about 10 to 12% is solids. Somewhere in around 8% is left over from that is whey. We take the whey, we separate it, we move it over to the whey plant, which is a tall building in the back. We run it through evaporators and we make condensate out of it. We extract all the solids out of that and make whey powder from it. The whey powder we sell all over the world, and it goes into crackers and animal feed and all kinds of things. And what's left is actually condensated water. It has been totally evaporated from the milk, and it comes back in the form of water. So we've done a lot of testing on this stuff. The Regional Water Quality Control Board and the state has had us do that. And the BODs are less than 20 milligrams per liter. The ECs are almost negligible, less than 5, extremely low. The only thing it does have in that form is it has a slight odor to it, very slight. What we plan on doing with cow water in the future is, well, you've seen the expansion we're doing, and we're planning on utilizing cow water more fully than what we have. Because we're a water producer, what we really want to do is buy less water from the city of Newman and utilize the cow water on the plant itself. We already use it in the boilers. We use a lot of it there because it's very soft water. There's no hardness to it at all. It makes the boilers run better. We use it for cooling pumps. We use it for the evaporators, for cooling off. We have a lot of refrigeration that we have to do with the cheese. We put in a new silo in the back. We're putting in a lot of new piping because that is the plan. With this expansion, we want to stay within, of course, what our limits are. As far as flow, BOD, and ECs, but we also want to take cow water from a liability to an asset. So that's what our basic plans are. We've tested this stuff so much I can't stand it anymore. One of the weirdest tests I've ever seen was we did the chronic toxicity test, which required semi-annually by the state. Basically, they would come out and sample about 10 gallons of cow water, put it into an aquarium, put fathead minnows in there, a very specific species of minnows, and they would have to live in there for 72 hours in an aquarium. They did that, and we had a 100% survival rate. So it's pretty clean water. It's in some ways it's cleaner than city water is. It has lower ECs and things like that. Yeah. I don't know if I'd try that one. Anyway, it will actually, I think, Lance and I are in agreement, it would be a benefit to the wastewater plant because it's clean water that we're sending out there. We worked over 6 years and spent over $50,000 getting an NPDES permit. We've jumped through a lot of hoops to get this permit to run it down the storm drain. And there's nothing wrong with it going down the storm drain. We can legally put down 30,000 gallons maximum a day. 15,000 is average for the month. So if we have a big day, we can put 30,000 down, which in the course of water flow is not tremendously a lot. And 15,000 is only 15 gallons a minute per average. But that's what we can do on an average. Okay?
Thank you for educating me on that. Any questions from the council?
No.
I might just add one thing, that the 25,000 gallon extra that they're asking for, we can handle that easily out there. That's just a drop in the bucket. So as far as that end of it, that's no problem.
Okay. Thank you, Lance.
Well, I move to authorize city manager to increase F&A Dairy's allowable effluent discharge from 240,000 to 265 gallons per day.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Oh,
Could I ask
question.
one I'm sorry. There's one letter that says from 240 to 300,000 gallons per day.
That's what they asked for. But they're only going to
Okay, so they go,
265.
okay, I'm fine, I'm happy.
But it would be 240 to 265?
Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
does the motion
deferred,
still
you
stand,
got
or
it.
do we need a new motion, or? Motion still stands?
That's still
And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for expanding your plant, too. That shows a lot of faith in Newman. We appreciate it. Item 9D, authorize staff to issue a will serve letter to Swamp Rats Gun Club to provide sewer service.
Basically what this is, and I wrote a quick report on this, but what is happening is with the Sherman Ranch subdivision, as you recall on our on the map, the general plan map, and et cetera, and if you look at our storm drain, wastewater plans, both, you'll see that there's an easement required that would go down Swamp Rats Road. The wastewater line would go down till it joins up with our trunk line, which goes out to the wastewater treatment plant. Stormwater actually continues on out farther. Actually, there's a couple options they're looking at right now at that, whether it goes that direction or not, but that is one of the options, that it would go on out and eventually empty into the wasteway. There have been some minor, well, not really complications, but as we looked at Swamp Rats Road, it was discovered that between us and the developer that road was designated as a legal county road. However, it was never accepted by the county, which basically meant that it is still out there as a private road, I guess. And so we've been working with the county. They were looking at doing a quiet title action. I believe we've mentioned this to you previously. And this issue came up, and in talking to the Swamp Rats Gun Club, they mentioned that they didn't really have a problem with it, but they questioned and asked us if, when that line comes down there someday, if we would serve them for wastewater. And so we reviewed it. I had Lance look at it at the wastewater treatment plant, and Ernie Garza, and they've come back with the memo that you see attached here. Obviously, we didn't want to say just openly, yeah, we'll serve you whatever there is there. But so they put some conditions on it. It was to serve what is currently existing there, because we don't want to tap our resources as far as our capacity that we have at the plant unnecessarily, and providing them more than what we can handle. So we have limited it to a certain extent, and then we will place these other conditions as you see on here. With that, what we would be doing is issuing a letter to them, which would basically say, when the service comes available down that easement, you can then have the right to hook up, as long as they pay the charges and meet the other conditions that are listed here. As Lance mentioned, this would be the first service that we would be serving outside of our city limits. I don't think that raises a real big concern. We can deal with those on a case-by-case basis. It's not uncommon for cities to do that on occasion. It is allowed within our current ordinance, wastewater ordinance, to serve properties outside the city limits. So, Lance, did I miss anything, or is that fairly complete?
Eventually, that should be within the city limits anyway.
Well, someday it will be.
Right.
Yes, it is within our sphere of influence, and someday that will be
Part of the city.
Part of the city.
Mhm.
So,
And right now, we're talking about a mobile home and clubhouse that
correct.
all would be connected. Any other
Okay, well, has anything
questions?
been done about which way they're going to go as far as who's going to pay for what? When the line goes, there's two different, and as long as all fees are paid, including the cost of extending the main to the property served, then in this case, all lateral hookup fees should be paid. However, since the extension of the main line is attempting to come through from another source, the Swamp Rats could grant an easement instead of participating in the cost of the main line.
Well,
two
that's the
scenarios.
key. The developers will be putting that main line down through there. So I'm assuming, they may come back and, we'll be discussing that as far as, because that line that comes down through there will serve other properties other than just Sherman Ranch.
Right.
So, but there will probably be some reimbursement agreements that will go through for them to try to
Yes,
capture all those properties that will serve. So.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, this is an action item. Do we have some direction?
I move that we authorize staff to issue a will serve letter to Swamp Rats Gun Club to provide sewer service.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the recommendation passes. Item 9E, approve extension of the 35 mile per hour speed limit on Hills Ferry Road for an additional 3/10 mile east of Driscoll.
Yeah, this is my item. At the March 14th council meeting, a concern was raised by council regarding the Driscoll and Hills Ferry intersection, and which was given to staff to research. And pretty much in a nutshell, we were looking at a concern for eastbound traffic coming out Hills Ferry into that Driscoll intersection. In researching, we were able to find that there was one accident that did occur, but it was from westbound direction. And it was a drunk driver rear-ended a vehicle that was coming out, making a left-hand turn. So, and that was over a 10-year period of time. We found more accidents that actually occurred down by Canal School and Hills Ferry, about 5 more. So that intersection possibly might need a little bit more attention. We also, in researching too, we're also looking at ways that we might be able to improve the signage and safety of that intersection, and we did find some things that we might be able to do to improve that. One is that there are existing road buttons, those little white buttons that you pass over that are on the roadway as you leave eastbound 3/10 of a mile before the Driscoll intersection, right there by the Loftbrow intersection. And it's a 35 mile an hour sign that's off to the side of the road, but that road kind of narrows, and I see that we have a tree that we're going to kind of cut back a little bit right there to kind of make that a little bit more visible. We are looking at, Ernie has told me we could repaint the slow and the 35 miles an hour that's painted on the roadway that these buttons alert you to. And then we're also looking at extending, there's right in the middle of the intersection on that eastbound traffic, right in the intersection of, obviously on the shoulder of the road, as a end of 35 mile an hour zone, which would indicate to drivers to kind of speed up. So we're to discourage that and to keep the traffic down. We're looking at, or I'm requesting that we move that out 3/10 of a mile. We have now, at one of our past council meetings, extended our city boundaries to go out towards Swamp Rats, which is about 5/10 of a mile on Hills Ferry Road past the Driscoll intersection. To also encourage traffic to slow down on the westbound side of the roadway, we're also looking at putting an advisory sign for a 35 mile zone ahead, right at that the Swamp Rats Road or Swamp Rats driveway there at this point, which is 5/10 of a mile, half mile out, and then 3/10 mile, which would be 2/10 of a mile. That would give them a slowdown period instead of just right as it currently is, where they have just an abrupt 35 mile an hour zone. So this would give a kind of a little barrier for them to be able to kind of slow down, and then we'd have extending that 35 mile an hour zone again 3/10. So on each side of the roadway it would be the 35 mile an hour zone. Currently our code provides for such. It does say the city limits, and since we've extended the city limits out, it would not have to be codified, and it would have to go to an engineering study at this point. So we're looking at that, and then any of the other advisory signs and code or signs that we have out there, the road buttons and things, would be improved and repaired to bring them up to snuff, so we would have a really good intersection out there. So I think with these changes that we would see some change in behavior. Plus, I'm looking at doing some enforcement once we get these in place. First advisory, and then the enforcement. So with that, I think we'll probably see a change of behavior.
And I hope so. What about your mobile unit? Would that be helpful out there too?
We looking at deploying that also out there. We have deployed it on other parts of Merced Street before it turns into Hills Ferry, but not really on Hills Ferry at this point. But we could put it out there.
There was a 35 mile zone ahead sign out there coming westbound at one time, and it kind of disappeared. Used to be out right where that house is, the little trailer parked by there, and it disappeared about a year ago or something. And so there's one other thing. There's quite a distance between the last 35 mile an hour sign going eastbound And when you get to the sign, it says 35 mile an hour, no longer 35 miles an hour. So maybe we could put a sign in between there. And then also coming westbound, on top of the 35 miles on, sign, we could put a radar enforced sign up there like they have.
There's currently one right now that's on the bottom of that, the current sign that we have, but we could encourage
Make it more
that.
prominent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have 5 radar units, so we should be able to have a unit that would be equipped.
Well, I've always thought that 35 mile per hour sign coming westbound into Newman was way too close to Driscoll. Because
To
it
slow
doesn't,
down
like you say,
traffic.
then, now the other problem, and you can explain that, what we talked about earlier, is that coming eastbound, when they're coming out of Newman, nobody goes 40 to 35 miles an hour. It's when you're going Driscoll and turning left onto Hills Ferry Road, it's like you're taking a chance and hoping nobody's coming. Then as soon as you get out there, you see somebody on your tail and you got to really punch it. So you said that in the master plan about Canal School maybe moving over and
In the master plan, I'm not sure what time period that's going to take place. We're looking at moving Canal School Road to make a 4-way intersection with Driscoll and Hills Ferry. So with that change, that would lay the foundation for possibly a light at that point. Plus, with the other additional growth you're looking at, that you've right. So that would at least lay the foundation for at least a 4-way. It could be a 4-way stop or a signal at that point.
Lucas Ranch 2 is going to be over there.
Yeah, I
I'm not going
think-
to count my chickens before they're in, but that's the growth is moving that way.
I think this is a good start, though.
Yeah, I do too.
It's, that curve there, for some reason, it's human instinct. As soon as you see a sign, no matter if it's a half mile ahead, you start speeding up. And so I think moving the sign out is going to be a big help.
I think so too. That was one of the first things I was looking at when I saw that out there. I'm going, boy, that would that's just like a red flag. You want to put your foot on the pedal to move it a little bit quicker.
David, what you want to do is on the eastbound 35 is move that further out towards
both-
Swamp Rats.
On both sides.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that one.
Yeah,
But
moving
then
both further out.
there's a 35 mile sign quite a ways this way on Merced Street. Then there's quite a gap in there before you get to that sign that says that there's no more 35. And-
Can you enter that N35? Can't that be put out further?
Yeah, well,
Yes,
that's what
it
he was
can.
going to do.
That's an
Yes,
advisory
that's what he
sign.
was going to do. But
Are they-
somewhere in between there, I think we should have another 35 sign. Like
On the
just right-
eastbound traffic
Or,
between
yeah,
before
just
Canal
right
School?
before Canal, or just right past Canal, it should be another sign just says 35.
I'm sure that's something that we could look
We
at.
can take a
if
look at it.
Council so directs. We were only looking at an expense of about $350 too. Well, with additional signage, that could bring that cost up somewhat more, but I'm sure it's within the means that we have.
If we can prevent one accident, it's worth that.
Definitely.
So.
All right, thank you. This is, we'll need a recommendation then to approve the extension of 35-mile speed limit.
I make a motion, we approve extension of 35 mile speed limit on Hills Ferry Road for an additional 3/10 mile east of Driscoll.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I didn't say aye, but I do approve also. Thank you, Chief. 9F, adopt resolution number 2000, next number, approving the dedication of right-of-way on Inyo Avenue and adopting the deferred improvement agreement.
Okay, I will handle this. This is a combination of kind of 2 items. As you know, with this intersection has the business Yancey Lumber and also their new storage unit business, which they recently have put up down there. This is a result of that whole project in conjunction with our proposed improvements that we are working on right now to improve Inyo Avenue from Highway 33 to west or east to the city limits. The purpose of this item is twofold. One, to receive the dedication of property that we need for Inyo Avenue, and that's a combination of being a result of his required dedications for putting in the business that he has there, and also the second part is for the improvements that would have been required as a result of him putting the business in. And what we're doing is deferring those improvements until we do the actual work on Inyo Avenue. It'd be crazy for him to put his little bit in and then come back later and do the rest of the improvements that we need to do on Inyo Avenue. So what we are doing is deferring those improvements until such time as is necessary for them as part of our Inyo Avenue project. The total amount of the improvements attributed to his business came out to $8,000. That's kind of a combination of negotiation of some things we negotiated with him to get the dedication, and also to require the improvements that he had were required as part of his business that he did. That is on page 2 of the agreement. You can see the amount of $8,000, which will be paid to us on demand, which will happen when we get ready to do the actual construction of the Inyo Avenue project.
What's the time frame on that?
We've submitted paperwork to Caltrans for the preliminary engineering, and we're working on that. It will go to bid. It's kind of following the same time schedule as the streetscape project. However, if there's one of them that gets delayed a little bit, it will be the Inyo Avenue project,
Right.
and not the streetscape project, because of the funding cycle that we are in. But we think that they will both actually go to bid probably in June at the same time, so, or right around the same time. The Inyo Avenue project also has some funding guidelines that allows us to pick up some additional funding if we get it all approved in June. So we are attempting to get that, and also it's a smaller amount than with the streetscape. It's only about $16,000, but it is some that we can receive some matching funds from Stancog. So.
Any other questions, comments? Do we have some direction?
I move we adopt resolution number 2000, next number, adopting the deferred improvement agreement.
It's been moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9G, adopt resolution 2000, next number, designating the city manager and the city of Newman as the city manager of the city of Newman as the risk manager.
This is a resolution that I'm requesting that the council consider. It's one that I had when I was in Lathrop, and many of the cities that are members of the Central San Joaquin Valley Risk Management Authority have these resolutions. It simply allows me to authorize settlement of claims and rejection of claims that we receive in an amount under $2,500. It resolves some things as far as getting to these quicker than it might require, as far as bringing them back and scheduling them for a city council meeting. So I'm requesting that the council consider this resolution at this time.
Any questions?
I so move that we adopt resolution number 2000, next number, designating the city manager of the city of Newman as the risk manager.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. 9H, receive and file information regarding area code changes.
I'm not sure how many of you had heard about this. I've been to 2 meetings on it now, and many of you probably have. But I wanted to get this information to you. If you've had a chance to look at the maps that are in here, you'll notice that all of the maps which are shown here basically take Newman and put them in a separate area code from the rest of Stanislaus County. And so the Stanislaus County has formed a group, a task force, if you will, and I went to the first meeting of that just yesterday morning to try and convince the group that is responsible, the organization that's responsible for making these changes, that number one, Stanislaus County should remain all in one area code. And perhaps even prior to that, there's a lot of study going on that perhaps this isn't even necessary at this time. There's some new avenues that they're going through that are taking place that may prove that it isn't even necessary. The interesting thing is that there's a study going on right now to find out how many numbers there are actually out there that are available within this area code. However, that study will not be completed until after the PUC has made their decision on this particular item. And therefore, it seems kind of backwards. They should have the study first to determine for sure whether or not this is needed. And so the other avenue that the group is going to explore is back in New York, and Chicago, there's been a couple of areas where they have actually brought in, and I'm going to bring this up even though I don't know exactly how to explain it because we don't have enough information yet, but it's called a pooling effect. And essentially, from the information we've received initially, it could extend the life of the 209 area code as much as 75 years by going into this pooling procedure. So we're looking at several avenues. We're very disappointed in the way this has been handled by the PUC. It's almost like they've already made up their decision. And it's been very difficult. We've been given no criteria on how the decision is made. There is no numbers to back up, why a certain city or a certain area is in one area code and another one is in another. It's been very difficult to receive any information on this at all. They referred us to a couple of websites to get some criteria and things, and we found nothing on that. It was interesting. Information I received yesterday showed that there was on a website that showed, I believe it was Pac Bell's website, showed the area codes that were set up for change or division in the next 4 or 5 years. 5 years was it? And 209 is not listed as one of those. It's not even listed as one that's scheduled for that in the next 5 years. So with that, this is basically an information item. I'll continue to be involved with that committee. If any of you want to be involved also, I welcome you, and to any business owners that might see this, that's important to them too. It does require a lot of changes. One of the things obviously that would do is any calls that you make, possibly even in some of these plans from here to Crow's Landing would require you now to dial 10 numbers, 1 plus 10 numbers, if you were in a new area code. Now, the point that they've told us so far is that just because it's 1 plus 10 numbers would not allow them to change the cost of the call. So the cost that they're charging now would be the same as what it would be even if you did the 1 plus 10 numbers. At least that's the information we've received so far. They're not allowed to change those rate areas. So.
But they kept pulling us out here in the corner.
Where are we
from the rest
as
of
far as like, if you look at this one map, well, there's several. Are we included with Modesto? Maybe that's probably the easiest way to clarify it.
It's kind of
No, not on
unclear
this
on
one.
all these,
See,
they're
I mean,
so
it's
close.
hard-
Modesto, and here's us down here. We're not even in
I mean, it's hard to tell the way this map.
Which map are you looking at? There's up at the top, it has alternative numbers.
This is alternative 1A.
Yeah, and we're not even in with Modesto.
And
Right.
what I'm saying, the way they draw the line there, the border line, it's hard to see if it just barely misses it or it includes it.
No.
We're right here.
If you look at the very thin line that surrounds Newman,
Right?
that is called a rate area.
Okay.
And that's what defines where we would be at.
So we would
You
not
can
be
see
in
it's clearly outside that dark line, so we would not be within. That is basically, that little thin line is the 862 prefix, is what it is.
Okay.
But if you look at alternative number 3, it looks like Newman is in that. If you
Yeah.
look at the rest of them,
It
doesn't.
doesn't make any sense.
Well, if you quickly, if I can explain, alternative 3 is what is called an overlay.
oh yeah.
What that means is any new numbers that come in basically would receive a new area code. So you could have a neighbor across the street from you that you would have to dial 1 plus 10 to get a hold of. These have been tried, but they've currently been put on hold everywhere that they've been tried, including Southern California and other areas in the United States. So although at the meeting they reported this would work, my understanding is that everywhere that they've tried them, they've had to stop them because they're not working.
Well, now they're talking about splitting Fresno again
Yeah.
within
We
the
just
next 4 or
went through
5
this.
years. So.
Mhm.
Well, the sad thing is how many numbers we all have. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how many I have.
Now, another one to remember. Mr. Novoa, you had a
Yeah.
comment.
Bob Novoa, 940 Fresno Street, Novoa Jewelers. And I'm going to speak for myself, but I think you would probably get the same response from 99.9% of the merchants. And obviously, this is an inconvenience for whomever it happens to. However, the cost to individual merchants and residents alike, obviously the merchants are going to bear a much greater burden. Just in our situation, we just received delivery of our sales receipt books. That's a large number. And what's the time frame on changing this?
I understand they want to make a decision by November, end of this year, I believe.
Yeah, that would put us through about a third of what we order, because we usually order enough for a couple of years.
But it
And
No, not, right.
2004,
It's gonna be
okay.
4 years.
We'd probably be okay in that instance. But in any regard, obviously lead time for business would be paramount. I think we all need to know that if this is going to happen, when it's going to happen. But I would certainly like to see us try to stay inside Stanislaus County and make that county line the border line. And certainly Merced County has already been changed once, and it appears that they're going to be changed again. But it's still county to county, from my perspective as a merchant, makes a whole lot more sense than isolating one community into another area that has no geographic relationship to it. And so I would encourage the council to strongly oppose this recommendation and be very, very proactive in trying to get it resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there public hearings scheduled for this?
Yes, in this packet, if you look, it's about halfway through. Right behind the last map, there's a list of public meetings. You will note where the public meetings are held. There's one in Merced, Sonora, and Manteca. But they did have a public meeting, was the one that I attended already, but it was for government only. It wasn't for private businesses. We were the only ones that were noticed of it. I did attend that one, and I brought up the issue that it seemed very strange that in these maps that are drawn, they always come down the line and then all of a sudden take this little niche up around Newman for some reason. And so I brought that up and made that point, and we will continue to make that point at the other public meetings.
Yeah. They didn't give any indication as to why the boundary was drawn outside of Newman?
They didn't. The people that were there, the board that was there, the only thing they said is that they tried to draw the boundaries on the rate area boundaries. It's next to impossible is what they told me to split those rate area boundaries. Very difficult. And that's one of the concerns, is the fact that the rate area boundary known as Turlock, if you look at it on there, actually splits, the county boundary splits that rate area between Merced and Turlock, or Merced and Stanislaus County. So.
Just to follow up on what.
I'm sorry. Your name and address.
I'm sorry.
For the
It's
record.
Ken Rose, 2118 Creek Court, Newman. With regarding area codes and splitting, I can tell you firsthand that the overlays do work, and because for the last 4 years, that's what I did, was switch administrator down in Southern California for two of the one of the long distance carriers switches, and overlays do work. In fact, they're a benefit. The state, if they're going to exclude us from the 209 area, which is primarily getting the influx of new people into the Stockton area, and that is where the influence or the increase of line numbers is increasing, and that's why they're looking at a shortage of the phone numbers, because basically for every prefix you're only allowed approximately 10,000 lines, and out of that you take out so many for testing and a few other purposes. And like Newman right now, Newman has 2 prefixes. Not just one. There is one that everybody knows, but there is another telephone company that has come into the area and has purchased a prefix to serve Newman. And so what I would encourage the council for direction would be to go in the direction of an overlay. The only reason for that is it allows us to maintain the area code that we currently have. All new service will go to it. The Bay Area is already scheduled for it. The only downside to the overlay is everybody has to go to 10-digit dialing, Well, 10-digit dialing is going to be scheduled for the state of California within the next 3 to 4 years, period. Meaning, whether you got to call someone across the street or not, you're still going to dial 10 digits. I mean, that's a given. That's a foregone conclusion, and there's quite a few states that have already done that. The sad part is it's a tug of war from a business perspective. You know, everybody was thought, well, we were close to Turlock, so we won't split, because that was the whole argument that settled it before because of Medical Alert. But going forward, it really doesn't matter, because there's so many changes forthcoming with the phone networks. There's one that they probably don't even address, and it's called local number portability, where you take your phone number for life. And that's where they're going. That's the direction. That's where technology is headed. So I would just encourage the council to, as a recommendation, if they are not going to include us in allowing us to maintain the same area code as the county seat, or even, you know, a local call, that's where it becomes rather difficult. And I would encourage you to go with the overlay, just because it allows us to maintain our current setup, and it puts us, the county, in the forefront of joining the rest of Northern California as it goes to a 10-digit dialing. If anyone had questions or wanted an explanation on rate areas and how those work and why they've moved us where we were, I would do it, you know, give you an example offline if there's anything that someone would like a further clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Did they indicate to you what was the feedback at your meeting on the overlay issue? I mean, it sounds as though most of the county, because they'll maintain the 209, would not be supportive of an overlay, as Newman might. If we can't be included in the 209, we'll go with the overlay. But
Well, and I know Ken may know more than I'm sure he knows more than I do, but the information that I received at the meeting yesterday was that some of the overlays that have been approved have actually been suspended because of problems. And this came from the group that has been doing some research on this for this. Now, you know, that's why I'm not calling anybody a liar, Ken. I'm just saying that that's what it came from this group.
The group called Turn?
No, this was county officials who are doing research on this now. County and city of Modesto officials, plus some others that are part of this group. So, no, it didn't have anything. Wasn't any official outside group. So, that was the research. I'm not saying one way or the other. I do know that the basic response at the public hearing was they weren't real favorable of the overlay, and I think it's just that initial thing of saying, you mean I have to dial 1 plus 10 numbers now, as opposed to, you know, what I'm doing currently, possibly even to dial, you know, a block down the street. True, we may be going to that in the future. I think the key is, though, something else that Ken mentioned. For instance, he brought up the idea that there is actually another prefix in this area. Does anybody know what that is in here? It's not very well used, and that's 10,000 numbers, approximately, that are out there that are not being used. So that's what has raised the question on part of this group. Are we really that close to the line where we need to start looking at dividing the 209 area code? And these are the kind of questions that we're trying to get answered and are not successful yet in getting those answered. But I think the ultimate is that perhaps this could be delayed for 5, 10 years. We don't know, but that's the avenue we're going. And perhaps if it comes down to that we don't have any choice, perhaps the overlay is the recommendation. But the group that I'm part of is planning on coming up with a resolution for the council to adopt, that we hope to come up with a standard resolution that everyone can agree on, that we will take back to, that we can send to the PUC, and that we feel is our position on this. So.
And hopefully the rest of the county cities would be supportive of Newman's issue. And and help us in encouraging the PUC.
Well, I think they are. They have been, they've been focusing on the fact of saying that Stanislaus County needs to remain all in the same area code. Their main point, though, I think that I will tell you in doing that is because of the areas of Oakdale, Riverbank, and Waterford that have been left out. Primarily Oakdale is, I mean, we're a little bit smaller, and as usual, we may sometimes get left out, and that's my point in attending these meetings. I was debating whether to, but I felt it was important. So at least we can attempt and put across our position that we are part of Stanislaus County and need to be in that area code also.
Not seeing the maps that you have in front of you, is Stockton retaining the new one?
None of the maps that are shown split up Stockton and Modesto. The dividing lines, basically, one of them puts Turlock to the south, one of them puts Lodi to the north. Those are the main divisions. And then, obviously, to the east of Stanislaus County would go one way or the other. So it's interesting that they haven't yet chosen to split up those two major metropolitan areas of Stockton and Modesto. And I'm not sure the reason for that. I'm guessing that part of it may be to avoid that fight that would take place, because obviously both Stockton and Modesto would place good arguments to try and retain the 209 area code.
Well, looking at their alternative number 1, Stockton maintains the 209, and we get split from Patterson and Newman. We would remain what the new area code is, which would be Turlock proper, and the reason Patterson is going to be going, because Patterson is a different rate area in itself that it is covered by a totally different phone company, which plays under different rules than Pacific Bell does.
Right.
Well, sort of different rules. The alternative 1B is where Stockton does get a new area code, and that may be the one where we would fall into it, only because Turlock maintains the 209 because of Medic Alert. And then alternative 3 is the overlay. And then your alternative 4 is Stockton, again, maintains the area code, and Modesto. And so those are the ones where 4B, I don't see that happening. Where Stockton and Modesto change and everybody else gets to stay the same. But those are, if you look at them primarily based on those rate areas, and that it's given the proximity to the Bay Area is why that area code won't change. But the other saving thing is when they do, whoever retains the 209 area code will have to split again. The one who takes the new area code gets approximately 10 to 11 years without having to split. So that's why the overlay, works the best, because everybody keeps what they've got, and all new services that go in are assigned the new ones. But what Cleve was talking about for pooling was where rather than assigning a complete prefix, they assign a prefix and a set of line numbers. In other words, 1,000 through 2,000 belongs to telephone company A. 3,000 through 4,000 belongs to telephone company B. Because a lot of these upstart phone companies that provide service are given a prefix in a particular rate area because that's how they have to service it, but they only have 40 customers and they're utilizing 10,000 lines. That is why there's been such the exponential growth in it.
I guess cellular numbers and internet connections also have a play in that.
Your cellular, the cellular phones do, your pagers do, but now see the cellular phone it's like your number to be. It's wherever you are, anywhere in the state, pretty much anywhere in the country, you take that number with you. And that's what they're talking about, the thing called local number portability, which is where your landline is, where I get it now and I move to Gustine, I take it with me, or if I get it now and I move to Modesto, I take it with me. It's the same premise on the wireless. Once you have the number, why do you keep doing it? And if they were to develop that further, then the need to split the area codes won't occur as often as it needs to. But the decision before the council is, push what you can, but realize that we're small, and the fact that we're in the county doesn't hold water with the PUC. Ask multiple cities down in Southern California that I had to deal with, where you've got in office buildings that were split, not overlaid, that are split, that have different area codes.
In the same office building.
So it all depends where your dial tone comes from.
However, I was told by this group representing the PUC that where possible, they do try to follow city and county boundaries. And that's why I brought up the idea that in this case, it doesn't appear that you followed the county boundary where Newman is left out. But obviously, we don't have all the data that they had in making their decisions because they haven't provided any numbers to us of why one goes one way and one goes the other way, and that's the information we're trying to get.
Any other comments? Thank you, Cleve.
Next time you go there, tell them our population is 500,000. Now, what do you want to do?
And growing.
And growing.
Item number 10, items from the city manager.
Just quickly, the only other thing, I was, today, the mayor and I attended a meeting up in Sacramento with the office that is over school funding. We went up there with representatives from the school board and also from the building industry to try and mount a joint effort in their push to obtain hardship funding. I guess the good news is we found out what we need to do. The bad news is that we will probably not, at least right now, we are not eligible for hardship funding for schools. And so we will proceed to the next step in what we need to do, and we'll be coming back to you at a later date as far as what it is exactly determined we need to follow up on with that. But it was a good meeting in that we learned where we stand and the process and what we need to do. So
Thank you. Anything else?
that's all.
Items from the council. Councilmember Applegate. I got, yeah.
I don't know if everybody got this in their packet, taxpayers for fair competition.
Yes.
I'd like to, if you agree, I'd like to see it agendized so that we can make a resolution in support of that on the ballot. If this is okay with everybody.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Be great.
Okay.
I think it's a good,
Mm-hmm.
we're the only state in the United States that doesn't allow this, which is hard to understand.
California's always been different.
Yeah. Was anybody going to the landfill meeting like this? It's tomorrow night? Or Thursday night?
Thursday, yeah.
Didn't know
I
that.
have a
Okay, I'm just curious.
chamber. I'm gonna be
That's all
Well,
I
that's
have.
the meeting where they're planning on increasing the size of the landfill. Yeah. And that's, it's a public meeting?
Yeah.
Can we announce the date and time for the, let's see, well, this will show tomorrow night, so I guess it might be too late for the general public.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock tomorrow night?
No, Thursday night.
Thursday night, okay.
April 13th.
Board chambers, is that correct?
It's in Crow's Landing.
In Crow's
Oh,
Landing.
okay.
Huh?
4 to
Oh,
7.
4 to 7? Oh, okay. I knew there was 7. in
Where
there.
at in Crow's Landing is it? At the firehouse?
Firehouse, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Councilmember Martina.
Just to mention, as everyone knows, they're taking the census right now, and it's extremely important that everyone be counted. I'm sure that everyone's aware that I think we were undercounted by 100 people, and that amounts to $250,000 over a 10-year period. $250 a person there for each year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's extremely important, and
Very important. Thank you.
that's all I have.
Okay. Councilmember Reed.
I have nothing this time, thank you.
Thank you. And I have nothing this evening.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Good night.